Hello, everyone, and welcome back to American Redemption. This is episode 4. I'm here with Steven. How are you today?
Doing well, sir.
Great to hear. We've got a very interesting topic today. We're talking about institutions in this country and what we should do. This is a war, a culture war, and we need to work out our strategy. Sometimes you gotta, really fight for something. Other times you gotta say, okay, this is a lost cause and we're gonna have to retreat, regroup, come up with a new plan of action here. So that's what we're talking about. We picked 3 institutions that we are going to, 1, abolish, 2, reform, and 3, redeem. Now, Stephen, what exactly do we mean? What is abolish?
Yes, so I would consider this the PC or not PC, but family-friendly version of the date, marry, kill game, the Christian conservative version of it. And with abolish, we're going to take that as an institution that's fairly irredeemable at this point, that we're looking to do a tactical retreat, kind of gather our losses, we would say, and kind of pick back up from a new established point. Then with reformed, we're going to talk about getting into a long entrenched fight to save that institution. Kind of think of it as 2 snowball forts on a big field where you're kind of entrapped in your position, as well as the enemy you're fighting against is entrapped in a position, and you're really just waiting for the right time to make a move, and that's kind of going to be a slow and methodical battle. And then with redeemed is an institution that we know we can get power back in, and we just have to follow the 3-step plan by showing up every day and fighting the powers that be, and just showing up and taking the hill immediately, realizing that most of the people that are in those positions in that institution aren't really interested in keeping that position, and they might even just be doing it just to take up some time in their day. But you, as a passionate, God-fearing American, can show up there and make a better impact than them, and then the people will love you and they'll want to keep you.
Yeah, good stuff. I think we picked really the 3 perfect institutions here. I don't know if there's any better than what we've chosen. So let's start off with abolish. A lot of people would jump to like the media or something, but I think the one we picked is much more important. We want to abolish government schools and academia, because it's kind of the root of a lot of this other stuff. And it's very, very important that we fix this problem. I think, it's a noble goal to want to have a public education system. We want people to be educated. It makes better citizens, makes for better communities and countries and nations. But what we have right now is more like public indoctrination. It's a mess. I literally had Marxist thought taught in my high school class and in university too. It was terrible. I'm sure you've had that as well.
Absolutely. I would say that the current way that the education system is set up, I was listening to some really interesting things the other day about John D. Rockefeller and how he put $180 million into the U.S. public school system in 1902. You know what the equivalent to that dollar amount is today, Andrew?
Very large amount.
$5.5 billion.
Wow.
Imagine if a Bezos or a Zuckerberg or a Musk put $5.5 billion into just into the pocket of the U.S. government to put towards public education. Would not all of the right-wing media and other institutions just immediately throw their hands up and be saying, oh, these guys are trying to buy off all the public schools, so they're looking to create a system that's going to create employees and create workers, because that's ultimately why he did it. Because he was Rockefeller was having problems with the Rockefellers, the Carnegies. They were having problems with people working in the factories under not so great conditions. And the left claims to be the champion of the worker, but the entire school system was set up not so people could stand out. I mean, they always tell you in school that they want kids to stand out, but in reality, the creation of the public education system was created to create factory workers. That's why they had the bell in elementary and in middle school, and break time for snack time or for bathroom breaks or anything like that. So the fact of the matter is the public education system has been on a slippery slope for some time, and obviously there are people who are success stories and have broken out of that system who can see it for what it is. But I mean, I think the majority of Americans are still kind of asleep at the wheel of what the institution is actually creating, which is if not a dependent class, a class that is just unaware that they're being taken advantage of.
Yeah, that's interesting. I do know that the public education system changed a lot with the Industrial Revolution. Prior to that, it was much more about the pursuit of knowledge and truth, and then it became more about training good factory workers. And then it got even worse in the 20th century with this concept called cultural hegemony, which was this Marxist plan for cultural transformation, beginning with academia. It all goes back to Marx. So Karl Marx believed that oppression was based on class. And then one of his ideological errors, Antonio Gramsci, came along and realized that culture, or he wrote about how culture was used to oppress people as well. So he turned this from a class war system to a cultural war, and realized that he could use academia to indoctrinate the next generations and just totally take over the culture slowly, very slowly. So this began with the Frankfurt School, which was based on Antonio Gramsci's ideas. Initially, this was called the Institute for Marxism, founded in the 1920s. And they were following the Marxist playbook exactly. Antonio Gramsci had written that every revolution has been preceded by an intense labor of criticism, by the diffusion of culture and the spread of ideas among the masses of men. So they knew they needed to criticize and educate. That's exactly what the Frankfurt School did with its critical theory, which was a new philosophical basis. And all they did is criticize Western philosophy. They didn't have anything new, anything unique, anything original. They would literally just criticize everything from Aristotle to Aquinas and all of Western philosophy. That's their great contribution. And they spread these ideas, and now they have taken hold in our public education system. It's all through academia, and it's in primary and secondary education as well. And this all ties into their goal, the goal of Marxism, to liberate human beings from the circumstances that enslave them, which was class with Marx and became culture with Gramsci. So as you can see, the goal of Marxism became to destroy Western civilization because it's too oppressive. And this is what we're seeing today when they are talking about how things like showing up for work on time or being timely and organized, these are considered oppressive things. They're considered white supremacy. Did you see that the Smithsonian Museum published that list of basically European cultural elements and labeled them as oppressive and racist?
Oh yeah, I saw that. I showed it to my dad, and and him as an engineer, I basically had him look at it. He's like, "Wow, I'm pretty much all of these things, and I've never done anything to anybody." So
Yeah,
yeah,
he oppressed
it's
everyone. He's quite the oppressor.
it's a gaslighting attempt. Kind of to tie back into what you were saying, the Frankfurt School is all those guys who basically fled either is it Germany or
Germany, yeah.
Germany? They were the communists in
Yeah.
Germany. Yeah, and so yeah, they had a very skewed view from I mean being over there, and I just think when they do talk about attacking the institutions with critical theory, I mean that is literally just setting an entire culture on fire. And if that hasn't been exacerbated in our time with critical race theory going into the schools and kind of evolving the theory of critical theory, just making it purely off of race because they feel like they can do that now because America does have many different cultures within its culture right now. Really, they've already sown the seeds of dissent, and now they're just trying to, I guess, water those seeds with bad intentions, and really just trying to, yeah, start almost wars between the various factions within the nation, and yeah, parents are basically being told based on like their skin color if you're allowed to talk, if you're not allowed to talk, and even if they are supposedly a oppressed group, according to these thought leaders, they're told not to talk if they have the wrong viewpoint.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. 100 years later, and now here we are. It is increasingly clear to me that the education system is a lost cause. There is nothing we can do about it except for move on. We need new solutions. There's just simply no point in sending your children to a public school. They don't share our values. They will indoctrinate your kids. We need something else. There's two solutions. There's two ways forward: parallel institutions and then just straight up alternatives. So, like homeschooling is a popular alternative, and then parallel institutions, like find universities that are teaching our values. Right? I mean, off the top of my head, there's a few like Steubenville, Franciscan University of Steubenville in Ohio, Ave Maria University in Florida, those kind of universities
Uh,
teaching good values.
Liberty University
Yeah,
in
Liberty's probably pretty decent.
Virginia.
Yeah.
But no, I would just continue off of that and say school choice needs to be at the forefront of all of our leaders, all the way up from localities, all the way up to the state level. And as soon as the right can get a serious coalition to get a governor on board with school choice, it's going to be a cascade effect. Everyone is going to see how effective it works, and they're immediately going to go on board with it. But it starts with one, and it's going to be a snowball effect.
So, what
And
exactly is school choice?
school choice would basically be a voucher that you receive from your uh, municipality or county or even a state, the state, in terms of like basically a check or a tax incentive, etc., that you forego the paying of like X amount of your tax to your school,
Mhm.
and that money goes straight towards you funding your child's education at an alternative institution,
So
albeit
basically,
a
you're funding students instead of funding the
yeah,
school, and
you're
then they can use that money at whichever school they want. Introduce competition, which will improve the quality.
yes, yeah, it's a it's a voucher that basically gives the parents the final say in where they put their they could take that money in terms of a check or a tax incentive and put it back towards their public school if they feel like their public school is being effective and working properly. But if not, they can take that money and they can go put their kid in either uh, a private school. I don't know how it would necessarily work with homeschooling. I don't know how that process would work out. But yeah, private school, more specifically Christian private school. Catholic schools have had a surge in the past year. The state of Indiana has had a 33% increase in Christian school enrollment in the last year.
That's good. Those are good solutions. School choices sounds really good, and it's attainable as well. I could see that happening in some red states for sure. That's really good. And along with that, parents need to be going to school boards and applying the three-step plan. That's going to be huge. We've seen a lot of that. There's been a lot of that in Virginia lately, especially. It's a couple things. It's with the new COVID stuff. Like parents are out there like protesting the fact that their children are being forced to wear dirty face diapers all day, and then there's also like the whole gender crap and like transgender issues at school that public parents are finally getting out there and speaking up on. Like there are public schools that are like accepting transgender kids and letting them go into the opposite gender's bathroom. Like it just happened in Virginia.
Well,
Some
I
some
cannot
boy.
believe that boy who was wearing a dress went into the bathroom and claimed, "Oh, my skirt got a snag in it or got caught on a door or on something in the bathroom, and I just slipped and sexually assaulted this young girl." I cannot believe that is actually a defensible case. And then you have President Barack Obama coming out and saying that the fact that parents are upset is an unhinged conspiracy and built up topic from the right wing's culture war, the culture war that he created in the first place by redefining what marriage is, redefining what gender is, by basically inverting our culture on its head and then pointing at you, the innocent parent that's standing up for your child, saying, "No, you're an unhinged conspiracy theorist because I waged war on you as a parent who wants to raise a child with good American values that were American values up till like 20 minutes ago in our nation's history."
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. I don't know how anyone sane does not understand at this point that public school is no good. I don't know how we made it out of there, frankly. Well, actually, I do. It's because of our families, our parents. So good job to our parents, and that's a perfect tie-in to our second topic, which is reform. We are going to reform marriage, and that has tie-ins to family life in general. And for this topic, we are bringing on a a guest for this topic. This is Jackie, Steven's girlfriend. Welcome, Jackie.
Hi, Andrew. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So, Steven, what is the strategy with reforming?
So the strategy with reforming is it has to be a fight you're in for the long haul. It has to be something because this has a very serious tie-in with the courts and the judicial system, and honestly, that's going to take time to get reform on that aspect. So we really have to push the topic of reforming marriage from a cultural and political and ultimately theological, tying back into the church and Christian thought about what marriage actually is, in order to move the masses in our favor and then ultimately get favorable rulings in the courts that will make it better for people who are going through divorce who don't want to go through divorce, or outright just making it not worth people's time to go through with a divorce that they might be a little wishy-washy on, or ultimately just getting it to a place where, yeah, people decide for themselves, like, yeah, this is going to be a financial burden on me and my family, and I'm not getting too many positive responses from people saying, "Oh yeah, go ahead, leave him. He ain't this or he ain't that." Uh, Kind of move the culture away from that, where people are like, "Oh wow, you're getting divorced. Have you considered like counseling? Have you considered going back to church? Have you considered talking to a priest? Have you considered going through all your possible routes of reforming yourself and reforming your marriage before you ultimately decide to get the state involved in your marriage?" Which we can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to cover here because this is extremely, extremely important. The marriage is the most fundamental institution, well, family. And Scott Hahn calls marriage the first society. It gives structure and purpose to the rest of society, builds up everything else. All civilization is built on this first society between man and wife. And the left has understood this for a long time. Guess which country was the first to implement modern no fault divorce laws?
Is it the United States?
No, no. It was immediately after the October Revolution in the USSR. The Bolsheviks, they immediately instituted no fault divorce laws because they thought marriage was too bourgeoisie. They immediately taxed the family. That says it all, right? If the commies know the importance of this for trying to establish their whack job communist worldview, we should be, I mean, that should make it obvious that this is huge, hugely important. And luckily, we haven't let it go too far, too far. I mean, there's still good families out there, but we have to dig in and fight for it and make more strong families. And not just like nuclear family. That's kind of a distortion of the true understanding of a family, which came with the Industrial Revolution when people wanted to be able to move across the country. Really, we've got to talk about the clan, the extended family. So have a strong nuclear family and keep the idea of the extended family active. That needs to be important again. And just some more information on like how this all started, because we saw Black Lives Matter this last summer write about how dangerous the nuclear family was for their Marxist goals. They wrote on their website that they wanted to disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure. And that has been a Marxist goal for a long time, like I said, with the Russia and their revolution. Also, in Austria, this guy named Wilhelm Reich, who was a communist and a disciple of Freud. We don't know how weird Freud was. He viewed the traditional family as an endemic illness and encouraged deviancy to destroy the family. And look at today, that's exactly what's happened. You can look at all these social movements from the left that, LGBT movements more broadly, those have been targeted at destroying the family. That's their goal. That's their purpose. Most people who are in those movements don't know that, but that is the effect and that is the purpose behind them from the people who orchestrated them. How do we fix it? What do we need to do?
Yeah, so I think a good place to start with that is just to define what marriage is. Right now, I mean, the definition has already shifted. So, formally it used to be the union between a man and a woman, and now it's just recognized as two people as partners in a personal relationship. I mean, that's right off Google. So, I mean, like, you're already changing all these words to legally, formally. You're getting rid of the religious aspect of it. Um, you know, you're just, sure, it's a union of two people, but it's way more than that. And until we recognize that marriage is more than just a Pinterest board, especially as women, I don't think we can go forward with um, recognizing a as marriage as way more than just a union. I mean, ideally, whenever you marry your partner, your wife or husband, the goal is to bring children, into this world, and hopefully, I mean, you have the ability to do that. I've had people in my family that weren't able to bear children, and I mean, it hits a lot of women hard, but um, obviously, marriage is more than just the ability to have kids, but it's the love that comes from that. And as a society right now, I don't even think we recognize what love is, since we just love ourselves, which has arose from a lot of these concepts that you and Stephen talk about, Andrew. One of them being, like you said, these no fault divorce laws. So if you're really going to recognize marriage as something more than, like I said, a Pinterest board, I mean, that's something that as a society we really need to consider getting rid of.
Oh, 100%. Divorce should, no fault divorce laws for sure should be off the table. And I was disappointed to learn that the first state to institute them was California, signed by Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was not as good as many conservatives think. And maybe even eliminate divorce entirely.
I see. I don't know about that. I mean, while I don't think divorce is ideal, and all the bad you know things that come out of that, not just the money problems, but the hurt you can do your children and the family around you. Um, I don't think it's fair to stay in a marriage that you're being abused in.
No,
I
of
mean,
course not.
that, and so like I agree. Like we
But
should
that
get
would
rid of
be,
fault divorces, but to get rid of divorce entirely, I don't think is fair to
well, that
anyone,
kind of
because
case
it's
would
not
be an
just the
annulment,
woman.
not a divorce.
I'm sorry.
Like if in the ideal world, this would be, marriage would be the religious institution that it's meant to be, not the bureaucratic one. And so you'd be married by the church, and you would seek an annulment through the church, in which they consider those sorts of circumstances, but it would reduce the amount of separation greatly.
Yeah.
Even if it's
So
not a
I
perfect
think
marriage, like divorce is not like, you can't just go to divorce just because you're like fighting a lot or something.
I need you to elaborate a little bit more on that. So
Well,
right
like if
now,
that, like in the abuse, like there would be an annulment there. If
yeah,
something
okay.
like crazy was going on, that would be, the church would look into that, and they would grant an annulment. But they don't offer, like, there is no such thing as divorce in Catholicism specifically. I don't know about other branches of Christianity. It's considered adultery if you like get divorced. It doesn't mean anything.
Right. I mean, my dad's been married in the Catholic Church 3 times now, and
Whoa.
I know, yeah, and the Catholic Church in all two of his marriages, essentially making my brother and I illegitimate children. So the
Whoa.
church doesn't even recognize marriage as the sacrament that it is,
Yeah,
and
that's a whole
if
other issue. The church's erosion of their values. That's a big problem.
Of their power. I mean, they've ultimately given up their power. I think you made some great points, Andrew, touching on the spiritual and theological aspect of it. And it ties back to what Jacqueline said about them changing the definition of marriage entirely. Is that it's a contract between you and another person, but it's ultimately a three-way contract between you, another person, and God.
Yeah.
And so when you just show up to a courthouse and sign a little piece of paper with either a judge or a justice of the peace, or just someone who got a license to marry someone online that took them like 5 minutes, and there's some guy that showed up with a Hawaiian shirt and some sandals, it kind of
Cheapens it.
cheapens the entire meaning of the institution. And I think that's a terrible job on the fact of the church, that they've let the institution become so cheapened, because it's something that's it's sacred. Like you said, if you take it back to what Han was saying in its logical conclusion, it's the very foundation of civilization. You go back all the way to the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve. I mean, those are
Right. For
the
society.
the foundation of the world is.
Now, so do you guys think that the government should be removed from marriage entirely? Should it be a strictly religious institution?
As someone who wants to study the law one day, I don't think that the government can entirely be removed from marriage, because there are a lot of legal responsibilities that you bear to your significant other, um, that comes when you marry them. So, I mean, their
Mhm.
financial responsibilities, I mean,
Oh,
raising the
sure, sure.
kids. So, I don't think you can eradicate the government's rule entirely, but I think that, like Steven said, instead of, or as time has gone on, that the marriage was between a man, a woman, and God, that, like the government likes to do, it likes to think itself of God. So we remove the
Hmm.
government as that power that, um, maybe like replaces them as, let me rephrase this,
No, I
sorry.
see what you're saying. It's a good point. Like
uh,
the government is God in a secular marriage, in the government marriage.
right, yeah, so they're the ones that are acting as the be all end all in the relationship, when the people are more concerned about how the government is going to react to your marriage when you go through the courts, rather than how God is going to respond to your lack of willingness to pursue the marriage and the commitment that you made before Him.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying there, and it would be tough to get the government entirely out of marriage for those practical reasons you mentioned. But like maybe we could have the government stop like officiating them. It could be only like religious. The church would do marriages and handle like divorces and annulments and that sort of thing. And then the government would recognize like legal rights from the marriage.
Yeah, that's a that's a start. Yeah, but it all starts with the church being willing to take its power back. I mean, yeah, I mean they've all but almost ceded the definition of marriage itself to each individual state entity. I mean, all around the world, you see it. I mean, you see priests in Germany willing to basically give a blessing or like a show ceremony to same sex couples and whatnot. And that's a church entity. That's the church entity basically laying down its sword and shield to the secular definition of marriage. And I mean, you can't have that if you're gonna seriously look to push back against any state definition of marriage at all.
I kind of agree with that. So, just like the left does, instead of us waiting for our words to be changed or our definitions of words to be changed, I mean, like, let's just take back what a marriage actually is.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
definitely.
let's say that it's the coming together of a man, woman, and God. And let's just call what these quote unquote marriages are by the government. I mean, you're just signing a piece of a paper, signing away your, responsibilities, or giving someone else the right to your responsibilities, essentially, financial obligations, being able to decide your health care if something were to happen to you. I mean, let's just call
Civil
that
civil unions. It used
Yeah.
to
exactly.
be referred to as civil unions, but then because remember they always slip that in. This was all the way back to the start of our culture war that I was talking earlier about. President Barack Obama, where he said, "Oh, I would have no problem with civil unions, but marriage is between a man and a woman." This was him in maybe 2009, 2010, and how far have we gone from that point?
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
So
I-
literally, for you to be a conservative at this point in time is to literally be Barack Obama in 2009. Like, think about that.
That's insane. That's why we really are got to be reactionaries, not conservatives. But that's a whole other episode. Oh yeah, I know. I know someone who had had a marriage with a court official on Zoom, and I'm like, that's so lame. That just takes everything out of it. You got married by a justice of the peace on Zoom, and no one was there. I mean, that's not a
When,
marriage. That's not a marriage.
Did you know in Montana you can have two different people stand in for you and still get married? It's the only
Wow.
state. So in most states you can have one person stand in for another person, but Montana you can have two people stand in for two different people and get married. That's how most service men and women in the military get married. Most of them get married in Montana, so they can have two people stand in for them.
That's crazy. Totally cheapens it. One more question for you guys. So do you think that like couples who are having a lot of issues should not get divorced for the benefit of the children? Because there's so much evidence on the benefits of marriage for children. Like it just beats everything in terms of outcomes for the children. Even surprisingly, even a cohabitation, like where they're not married but they're living together, which is like imitating a marriage. Those kids are like more likely to drop out of high school, have worse GPAs. They have all these emotional problems. Like the statistics are like really alarming on how beneficial or like how bad it is to like not have married parents. The long-term benefits are so clear. 122% more likely to be expelled from school, 90% more likely to have a lower GPA. And this is for kids who like still have like two parents cohabitate but not married. 6 times more likely to have emotional and behavioral problems. It's crazy.
So, I mean, going back to the statistics, I think those might be a little misleading. Um, so, I'm assuming that divorces, or at least the cohabitations, might happen in poorer communities where divorce is probably more likely anyway, or at least maybe no marriage at all. Um, and so, I mean, we already know that those people are going to be more prone to worse GPAs and behavioral issues. So, unless those statistics can be broken down by maybe like by poor, middle, and upper middle class, I think those would be interesting to look at.
Yeah, this is 21% of the children in that study were below the poverty line versus 10% of children with married parents live in poverty.
Okay, yeah. So then I guess it would probably be evenly distributed among everyone then.
Yeah, I mean 21%
Yeah.
At or below the poverty line. I expect there to be a lot more. Honestly, I mean, I mean, this goes to just show it's a. I think it's seriously a middle class thing, and as goes the middle class, which are the backbone of the country, goes the future that we have. But
And ultimately, I mean, that's what the left wants anyway. They want to erode the middle class. So if they can erode the marriages between the middle class, I mean, there goes their problem. I mean, now you have truly an elitist society. So, I mean, I totally get why they would want to erode those marriages. But going back to your question, Andrew, do I think that it's better for couples to stay together, even, or for the kids? I don't know. So a lot of parents say that they would think it's better. I mean, my parents got divorced when my brother and I were 2 and 3 years old. So my mom had always said, she was like, listen, I mean, would you really want us to just be living together? I mean, you don't really experience what it's like to have two parents that love each other. So, I mean, who knows if it's better to just separate? I mean, I think it would be better if they could just be adults and work on their own issues. But I mean, that's something that the culture has eradicated well. And it's the fact that we don't want to be responsible to another person. And I mean, even being responsible to our children has gone out the window at this point. So, I mean, if there's a way to say, no, the state says, no, you can't get divorced because of you're just not getting along, well, then why'd you get together to begin with? I don't know what's better. So I think in my situation, it was probably better that my parents got separated. But I also was able to do well because my mom had taught me good values, and I had good grandparents that were there to watch after me and
The grandparents was
also
key.
give me good moral guidance. So I think that's what it comes back to, is just having that strong presence of the extended family that both of you had mentioned earlier,
Oh yeah.
of whether or not people are going to be successful.
I'm going to play the flip side of what Jacqueline just said, and I'm going to say that parents should stay together during, I guess, struggles in their marriage. If they do have children and they're debating on whether or not they should get divorced, just based on my personal situation, I mean, my parents stayed together until after I was out of high school. I believe it was my freshman year of college that they decided to part ways. And I'm just going to be perfectly honest about my past and whatnot. And I was hanging out with some very not so good crowds, I would say, and getting into a lot of trouble. I mean, probably a little bit more than even your typical uh, like 16 to 18-year-old. And I mean, I saw my parents struggling a little bit with their love life and the ability to stay together. And I mean, I don't want to get too much into their own personal details, but yeah, I would say the fact that I was in a two-parent household and I didn't want to disappoint was a no, not wanting to disappoint them was a big thing, because I'll give a personal background story. During my freshman year of college, after my parents had went their separate ways and they were no longer living in the same household. I'm only 18, 19 at this point, but uh, series of events leads to me showing up to my household under the influence, and I got kicked out of the house by my dad. And then I went and uh, saw my mom, and she took me, I guess, back in. Told me I wasn't gonna like sleep on the streets for the night, but I was not proud of myself. I was at a very very low point in my life at about that point. I mean, my my grandfather had just passed away, and my mom was living with my grandma, and so I mean, yeah, that's a really personal story for me, but I think it ties back into how important having a two-parent household is, because I was ready to go off the rails. I mean, if my parents would have split off sooner, I mean, I could have gotten serious trouble in high school. I mean, I'm lucky it was just my dad kicking me out of the house and not me getting arrested or thrown in jail at 18. So that's my experience with it.
Wow.
I,
Yeah,
I
that's
definitely
really
agree
interesting.
that there are benefits to having, way more benefits to having a two parent household. I mean, I definitely think I missed out on certain things, and I definitely could see the stresses that my mom was under. I mean, when she was in high school, she was working 70, 80 hours a week so that she could give me money for school. And if we had our parents together, it definitely would have been a lot easier. I think she kept a lot of the struggles private, um, but it definitely impacts your children, and maybe not in ways that you recognize right away. But there are times that my mom was just like, well, can't you get a ride to practice? Can we carpool? And I understand, you can't be there all the time, especially if you're working two jobs to just take your kid to practice. But, I just remember being under stress with just having to find a ride. And if you had two parents, that it makes it a lot easier. And sure, that's, a very superficial story. I mean, there are a lot of other struggles that I had growing up and questions that I had, especially for my dad, who was the one to leave. And I mean, I by no means had a bad upbringing either. I mean, I am very grateful for both my parents. My dad, I mean, was a parent that paid child support. But, I hate that parents even have to be forced to pay child support. Like, what do you mean you have to pay child support? Don't you want to support your kids? And I think that the erosion of marriage has really taken that away from people. I mean, it's taken away that responsibility. And people don't feel that anymore. They feel that I get to have my fun. I only live once. So, what am I going to let essentially this kid slow me down? Which is the most selfish thing you can do. And, essentially tells your kid that they're always going to come second to your happiness.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good point that Jacqueline made. The state involvement in marriage has minimized the relationship between a man and a woman to a contract, and kids as a contingent of that contract via a check.
Yeah, well, really good stuff, guys. I'm glad we could hear your experiences. They're very different from mine. I'm blessed to have had two parents with what is, have a marriage that's basically as good as it gets. And I hope everyone can have that, and I hope we can work towards a future where more kids can have that, because it's really important. Fortunately, you two guys turned out super well regardless. But one thing is for certain, this issue is very complex, but we do need to be encouraging a culture where people fight for their marriages and work at it. And that is why we think marriage needs to be reformed. It's just that important, and it's going to be a big fight, but we can do it. So, third topic, Stephen, what are we redeeming?
We are redeeming community leadership. Let's
charge up the hill.
Let's explain what that is. Yeah, I mean, I'll just start talking by saying, yeah, these are leadership positions within your church, within your school district that you that you live in, within your local community, within the various municipalities. I mean, yeah, this is taking a position in your community where you can have a positive impact. I mean, right now, Jacqueline is volunteering and teaching kids how to swim.
That's perfect.
Between like what, second grade and like fifth grade?
Kindergarten, like fifth grade.
Kindergarten and fifth grade. So right there, that's having a tangible impact on children that are need someone who can give that good community support as a good citizen. And it's like, listen, like I don't have to be doing this position, but I do it because I want to make a positive impact on my community, and I want to just instill my values into my community. There's a lot of bad people who are willing to inject their 2 cents into their community. Why can't you do it as an upstanding citizen? Why not get involved in your local church youth group and teach the kids a few things that maybe you wish you learned? I'll be honest. I had some youth ministers who I thought were like okay, or maybe like a little weird or a little standoffish, but I wasn't. I didn't not go because of them. But if I had someone who was like, oh wow, like this guy's like super cool. He really understands me and like the situation I'm in school. Like, oh, I definitely want to go back to learn more, or get involved in your local Bible study, or just find a good group of guys to hang out with. I mean, really, most people do not want. Some people do, but I'd say probably more than half. I have 70% written down. I don't know why I picked that particular percentage, but a lot of people don't really even want to be holding these positions in their local community. Someone sucked them into it at some point, and they're standing there and they're like, oh, well, no one else is taking it. I guess I have to do it now. And they kind of just mosey on through their life, doing the status quo, doing the minimum to keep the group up and running, or what you call it. And someone with a real desire to make an impact could go ahead and take that job over immediately and increase the value that they bring to their community tenfold just by showing up, following the 3-step plan, use the opportunities for good. That's all I can say. If you get an opportunity in your local community, your local church, your local kids sports association, your local March for Life group, you name it, find something, stick to it, and instill your good values on that institution. We can never have too many good people in our institutions. It's the only way we salvage any semblance of the country we have left. So
yeah, this
very important.
This level is very important because we have the most influence at this level. You can really impact people's lives, and it is step one. To reiterate this 3-step plan for new listeners: step one, show up. That's what this level's about. Step two, look good. That's kind of what Stephen was touching on. We don't want weirdos, being involved in our leadership positions. We want people who are good role models for the community. Step three, oppose Satan, which is, there's opportunities everywhere for that. And yeah, like you were saying, most people are sheep, to put it bluntly, and we need good shepherds for these people, for the flocks. So step up, be a leader in your community. There are endless opportunities, and you can have so much of an impact here. I don't know, this one we are doing okay at. We've been doing okay for a while, but we got to really just fortify our position and get out there and give it a little more effort. Localism is the solution for now. This is one of our most actionable and most effective ways forward towards redeeming the culture.
No, it is building strong relationships with your coworkers, your neighbors. I mean, that's ultimately how you're going to make it through, honestly, because the national the federal government isn't going to save you or make your life any better. And if you're not in the right state, your state government isn't going to make your life any better. You need to stop looking towards these people who show up on the news every night for your answers, and start kind of pointing the fingers back at yourself, and be like, the country goes as I go. If I'm doing the right things, the country will be better. If I'm not doing the right things, well, then I guess I'm just going to let it fall apart. But we all have to carry that burden, and I guess just be good followers of Christ, and carry our own crosses, and but do have fun in the process. We do have to be able to be lighthearted and not cynical, and not see it every day as a battle. I mean, we do have to know that we are in a fight for our country, but we also have to go into it with the approach that I'm going to be positive, I'm going to be high energy, I'm going to be a pleasant person, so other people are going to want to come along with me. I think that's the most important point, is to have a good attitude and actually want to make a difference. Because if you're just showing up and not wanting to make a difference and doing it for the same reason the other people are doing it, well, then you're no better than them.
Okay, I just thought of something about the marriage topic that I got to add in. So it's why no fault divorce laws are so bad. The no fault divorce laws gave sovereignty to the state over the marriage. Like, let's break it down a little. So if we had a man and a wife, they are a 50-50 partnership with a no fault divorce law. One of those can decide to initiate divorce. which is only 50%. In a partnership, that's not enough to move forward with a big decision. So instead, the state comes in and breaks the couple apart, essentially forcefully. So they are taking sovereignty from the married couple, and the state is coming in and breaking the marriage up, because 50% of the couple is not enough to make a decision like divorce. Instead, the state is breaking the couple up. And so it violates the principle of subsidiarity, that which is a really crucial principle to like self-government and localism. It's the idea that social and political problems should be solved by the smallest possible institution, which would be like the family first, then the community, etc. With no fault divorce laws, that's completely eradicated, and the state is breaking up the marriage. It is coming in and saying you are now divorced, even though only 50% of the couple wanted to.
So I have a stat for you.
Go ahead.
In 1989, after pretty much all of these went into effect nationwide, no fault divorce laws, the University of, not a university, the Justech Research Institute in Virginia found out that that a total of divorces happening on no fault grounds in 4 out of 5 cases, the decision to end the marriage was by one partner only. This new divorce law allowed a party to get a divorce without any solid reason. This led to an increase in the USA in divorces by 20 to 25%.
Wow.
You think about that, like maybe there's like 2 married couples. You have two couples that have been friends for a while or whatnot, what have you, and one person out of these 2 couples is unhappy or discontented, and they want to have a divorce from their spouse. Well, then suddenly, all right, only 25% of the people in this arrangement between these 2 couples are discontented. But I mean, that's 50% of the marriages that are getting broken up. I mean, it's literally giving the bad apples free reign. If you pull a larger pool of people, well, let's say only like 10% of people are unhappy in their marriage and want to get a divorce out of 100 people, but that's leading to, so that's 10 people out of 100. By having no fault divorce, that leads to 20 divorces out of 100, because 2 people are getting split up, even though one person is being discontented.
Yeah, no, that's pretty
that's
bad.
like that's crazy to think about that from just like a statistical perspective.
Andrew, I think you made a really good point with the 50-50% partnership. So I like how you said that, the man and the woman each have a 50% stake in the relationship. So, I mean, that doesn't leave any room for the government. And so the marriage itself is, between the 2. But the civil union, maybe the government has a 1% stake in it or whatever it may be. And so they're able to tilt that, that want for a divorce in either direction just by signing a piece of paper, which completely erodes the sacrament of what marriage actually is.
Yeah, really good point. All right, we're going to wrap it up here. Remember, we are abolishing government schools. We are reforming marriage and family life, and we are going to redeem community leadership. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Hopefully there was some valuable information in this and not just rambling, but please leave us a review if you're on the podcast app that has reviews, and tune in next time. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, Jackie, for coming on. Good work, guys.